You're listening to the Wells Report, which will return in 1 minute. The Wells Report returns in 30 seconds. North to south, coast to coast, around the world. This is the Wells Report. Good morning. My name is John David Wells. What do we do on this broadcast? We report the news honestly and fairly. We analyze the news for fact and bias. We point out both. In short, we de-propagandize the mainstream media. Yes, we make commentary. But commentary is not news. Commentary is opinion, both yours and mine, and so we debate. News, analysis, commentary, and debate. This is the Wells Report. Good morning. It's Valentine's Day. I went to the grocery store yesterday. The entire building was filled with boxes of flowers that were outrageously expensive. And so I decided that I would do what I've done in the past, which was to take a lovely crystal bowl out of our china cabinet and go out into our backyard and just sort of tear some grass on it and throw it in there along with a Twinkie. And that's what I gave to Susan this morning. And notably, I have been paying the price ever since. So don't do what I do. We will be talking about Valentine's Day later on in this broadcast. But first, not a whole lot of love being exchanged between the House of Representatives and DHS Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas. Indeed, the House voted to impeach the Homeland Security Secretary. This happened yesterday after an embarrassing failed attempt from House Republicans last week as they sought to make the crisis on the southern border a top 2024 issue. The vote passed mostly along party lines by a count of 214 to 213. No Democrats supported the effort. A few GOP lawmakers decided to join Democrats and try to save Mayorkas from his impeachment. ABC News has the story on this. Let's go to that here on the Wells Report as we continue on Valentine's morning.
Republicans have just voted to impeach DHS Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas. The razor-thin vote played out along party lines. The margin, just a single vote. 3 Republicans voted against the impeachment. In a statement tonight, President Biden is blasting the move, calling it a, quote, blatant act of unconstitutional partisanship. Speaker Johnson, in a statement, said Mayorkas deserves to be impeached. So what happens now? Let's get right to our Jay O'Brien on the Hill. Hey, Jay, this was a razor-thin vote. Talk to us about how it all went down.
Yeah, this was a squeaker. So Republicans needed 214 yes votes to pass this. They got exactly that, 214, no margin for error. They had to pass this by bringing back their number 2 Republican, Steve Scalise, who was absent for the last time Republicans voted on this when it failed in pretty dramatic fashion last week. He's been out receiving cancer treatment, but with him back and his assured yes vote, Republicans were able to put this over the goal line. Remember, Lindsay, the argument that Republicans have been making is that Mayorkas violated U.S. immigration law by not taking a more hardline stance on border security. The administration says that this is a political stunt. DHS says this is baseless. The reality here is, no matter what it is historic. Mayorkas is only the second cabinet secretary in American history to be impeached. The last time the U.S. encountered something like this was about 150 years ago during the administration of Ulysses S. Grant.
And now the vote moves to the Senate, where it's expected to fail. Majority Leader Chuck Schumer is out with a statement calling it a, quote, new low for House Republicans. What options do lawmakers have there in the Senate?
So for the moment, the timing of all this really does hinge on Mike Johnson. It's up to the speaker to transmit the articles of impeachment over to the Senate, and it's unclear when exactly he's going to do that. But once he does that, it's the Senate's ball. And the Senate, as you know and as you said, is controlled by Democrats, so almost certain to acquit Mayorkas. It's up to the Senate whether or not you get acquitted or convicted and removed from your job or not removed. It's the House's prerogative to impeach someone. The Senate can hold a trial on the Senate floor, as we saw during the Trump impeachments. They can hold the trial in a committee, meaning it wouldn't be on the Senate floor and it wouldn't interrupt the day-to-day business of the Senate, or they could just move quickly to dismiss this. No matter what path they choose, again, it's a body controlled by Democrats, and even Republicans in the Senate have expressed a lot of skepticism about the constitutionality of impeaching Mayorkas based upon what they say is a policy disagreement rather than a high crime and misdemeanor. So it's a foregone conclusion at this hour that Mayorkas will not be removed from his job and will likely be acquitted by the Senate. The question becomes, how does the timing of all this factor in? The Senate isn't expected to return until the end of this month.
And so ABC News bringing us the absolute details on that. The crux of the House Republican allegations against Mayorkas, this, by the way, from USA Today, is the secretary deliberately and willfully allowed the crisis on the southern border to reach an extreme state. With this vote, Congress has made clear we will not tolerate such lawlessness. This, according to the chair of the GOP-led House Homeland Security Committee, Mark Green, the Republican from Tennessee. He said that in a statement after the House vote. Democrats, a handful of GOP lawmakers and legal scholars across the political spectrum, have argued the House Republicans' accusations amount to nothing more than policy disagreements over immigration. I completely disagree. What we have here is we have a very serious issue that needs to be brought to the fore. That issue is that the executive branch of the government does not have a choice of which laws they will enforce and which laws they will not enforce. They don't have a choice. Yes, there's prosecutorial discretion. But that being said, that's after you've already made a decision to charge someone. The decision has just been made. The prosecutorial discretion now falls to the Senate. And if indeed the Senate decides to keep Mayorkas in his job, that cements Democrat policy on the border. What it does is it absolutely confirms what all of us here in border states already know, that the government of the United States has its border policy in place. And all they're doing now is fighting a delaying action, a delay game, to try to keep that policy in place as long as possible, to be able to import as many people into the United States as they possibly can, given a short time frame. It seems as though that the American people are ready to make a change in American leadership, mainly based on this particular issue. And yes, this is a political act. Impeachment always is. That being said, somebody has to do something. And to have an executive branch, then this started during the Obama administration, to have an executive branch picking and choosing what laws they're going to enforce and what laws they're not going to, famously the Defense of Marriage Act. President Obama said he was not going to have his DOJ defend that act. That was indefensible. Not the act itself, of course, but President Obama's determination that he just wasn't going to defend it in federal court. That's not his choice. But because of the cabal between the United States media and, of course, the Democrat Party and progressives, etc., it was just left by the wayside. That's where this started, or thereabouts. What we have now is we have a regular litany of laws not being enforced by the executive branch of the United States government. It has led to millions of people coming across this border just since 2020. Millions. More people have come across the border than live in 33 American states. And that's in the last 3.5 years. That's inexcusable. And right at the forefront of it, a facilitator, if you will, a cynical abuse of even the name of his agency, the Department of Homeland Security. Is there any Homeland Security on the border? The answer is absolutely no. So it's the Department of Homeland Vulnerability, not the DHS. the DHV. That's the way I see it. What's your idea? 817-379-2172, 817-379-2172. And let's spend a little bit of time talking about exactly who these Republicans were that indeed voted to go with Democrats and save Mayorkas's job. Well, those guys are well known, and the simple case of the matter is that I believe that they have indeed made a mistake. Who are they? Representative Mike Gallagher, the Republican from Wisconsin, Ken Buck, the Republican from Colorado, and Tom McClintock, the Republican of California. I said this yesterday. I'm going to repeat it today. The simple case of this matter is there's only 4 reasons why anybody would vote to keep the status quo ante on the southern border of the United States. Only 4. 1, you are a devotee or an investor in illegal drugs coming across the United States southern border. In other words, you're a consumer or you're an investor in those drugs coming across the border. Thing number 2, you are a devotee of or an investor in human sex trafficking. Human sex trafficking, where people are of both sexes, usually youngsters, usually children, are brought across the border for the sexual appetites of whomever. These 3 congressmen apparently either have some kind of predilection to enjoy that particular service or they're an investor in it. Let's talk a little bit about human smuggling. Human smuggling is another situation that's different from human trafficking. Human smuggling is where you bring, people on the terrorist watch list across the border. Over 200 have been apprehended at the border. How many have gotten away? We don't know. We do know that there have been approximately 1 million gotaways. So either these people are once again investing in bringing those people across, or they're trying to invite the next generation of arch terrorists to disrupt the society of the United States. That's treason. And all I can say on that particular issue is that, gosh, you know what? There was never a more busy government. There was never a government that had more power than during the 9/11 attacks, with the possible exception of COVID-19. Suddenly, the government had all the power in the world. They were able to completely suspend the Constitution and Bill of Rights of the United States of America. Really? Yeah, really. The last thing, the 4th reason why these people would want to keep the status quo ante on the southern border is because they're being paid off by Mexican drug cartels. Those are the only 4 reasons. There are no other reasons. I have thought about this for years. I've tried to come up with different reasons why people like Ken Buck and Tom McClintock and Mike Gallagher, supposedly Republican congresspeople, why people like that would want this border open. Now, I'm not exactly sure which of those reasons or which combination of reasons might be in play here. But those are the only 4 reasons I can think of. Have you got another idea? 817-379-2172, 817-379-2172. To me, that border issue is, it's a quintessential issue in the 2024 election, but it's much bigger than this election. This is an existential problem for the United States of America as we know it now. They used to say these people were being imported into the United States to do jobs that Americans won't do. I identified the real reason relatively quickly, and certainly before any of my colleagues doing this job for a living. And that was this. These people aren't being imported to do jobs Americans won't do. They're being imported to cast votes Americans won't cast. And oh, by the way, how come all these guys are single, military-age males? After watching the BLM riots of 2020, the summer of 2020, just exactly how much societal unrest, rioting, fires, murders, looting, what have you, are we going to witness, courtesy of all these people coming into the nation? when their leftist masters say it's time to strike. That's just something I thought I'd throw out there for whatever it's worth. Maybe it's worth nothing, but I doubt it.
Greece is cheap.
But the airfare costs a fortune.
Paris?
Not much closer, and again, airfare...
What about Puerto Vallarta?
Let's face it, flying anywhere is just too expensive.
Wait, what's this? Low-cost airlines.
With one call to low-cost airlines, you'll drastically slash your travel costs. We're talking insanely low airline prices to any of your favorite destinations. Where would you like to go? London, Rome, Costa Rica, Australia?
Wow, that's cheap.
So why wait? Call now to learn how crazy cheap it is to fly anywhere in the U.S. or international. Our prices are so low, we can't publish them. The only way to get them is to call to instantly hear the most amazing best deals on airline travel. It's that easy. So call now and start packing.
Call 877-512-3895. That's 877-512-3895. 877-512-3895.
If you're living with diabetes and using insulin, you know the pain of pricking your fingers over and over again. By wearing a small device called a continuous glucose monitor, or CGM, you can reduce the pain of pricking your fingers right away. If you use insulin daily, you might be eligible to get your own continuous glucose monitor. So call the US Med Diabetic Health Hotline today and learn about the latest CGM technology. Not only can a CGM immediately reduce pain, it's accurate, easy to use, and helps you make better diabetes treatment decisions. And if you have Medicare or private insurance, you can see if you qualify for a CGM at little or no out-of-pocket cost. We'll also provide free shipping of your new CGM, and we'll bill your insurance company for you. If you use insulin daily, you might be eligible to get your own continuous glucose monitor. So call the US Med Diabetic Health Hotline to see if you qualify for a CGM at little to no out-of-pocket cost.
Nobody wants to get ripped off, broken into, or robbed, but nobody wants to pay a lot of money to have their home protected either. I've got an offer to tell you about to provide home security for your home for less than $1 a day. For real, with no installation or equipment charges. And this is from a company rated #1 by a leading consumer research company. According to the facts, most of you won't even call unless there's a burglary in your neighborhood or something bad happened. So let's give you a reason. Save money. For less than $1 a day with no other costs, you can get your home secured. Plus, get a lifetime equipment replacement warranty. You need protection for your home. Call the Home Security Hotline right now.
Get your home secured for less than $1 a day, and every caller today immediately qualifies for free installation. Call now.
Call 877-275-0973. 877-275-0973. That's 877-275-0973.
This is the Wells Report. Good morning. My name is John David Wells. It's Valentine's Day. For goodness sakes, don't forget your Valentine. Don't forget your Valentine. Would be a bad idea. It's amazing. You know, it's not often where guys are the recipient of Valentines. It's the other way around. Guys are supposed to do the flowers and candy thing. But I mean, my wife hasn't even gotten me a spark plug. I mean, wouldn't that be nice? Just saying. So there are animal services people out looking for a coyote. Yeah, that particular coyote attacked a child at Parkway Central Park. This is in Arlington. And now a second attack is under investigation. The first attack happened on Saturday, February 10th in the 600 block of Van Buren Drive near Lamar Boulevard and Cooper Street. This according to the city of Arlington. City officials said animal services officers set a trap, patrolled the park, could not trap the coyote. Them's little dogs is smart. On Tuesday evening, Arlington police and animal services officers responded to the park again after another child was bitten by what is believed to be the same coyote. The city said that as a result of the incidents, Parkway Central Park will be closed Wednesday, February 14th. That's today. Authorities will continue to search for the animal and attempt to tranquilize it. All right, but that's not the only coyote attack that we're dealing with here. A hiker in Johnston, Rhode Island, had to kill a coyote with his bare hands. This happened Friday afternoon, according to authorities. Johnston Police Chief Mark Vieira told 12 News, that's TV 12 News, the coyote attacked the hiker in a wooded area off Bellfell Drive. The hiker was able to pin the coyote down by its neck and suffocated it. The coyote bit the biker on the leg, or the hiker rather, on the leg. It's unclear whether the coyote was acting suspiciously prior to the attack, but the coyote was then determined to have had rabies. And so that particular circumstance was talked about on one of the local television stations. Here, let me bring you that report here on the Wells Report right now.
Terrifying encounter for a man taking a hike in the woods in Rhode Island. Police say he found himself in a life or death matchup with a coyote.
Leanna Folk reports.
Anger.
It's either him or you.
And courage.
It's insane, but I would have did the same thing.
A deadly combination for the coyote that came face to face with a hiker in Johnston.
Knowing that one was there, who knows what it could have done to him if he didn't do what he did.
Police say a 58-year-old man killed the coyote after it attacked him Friday afternoon. It happened in a wooded area off Belfield Drive. The hiker was bit in the leg, but subdued the coyote by pinning him down by his neck. Officials say it suffocated to death.
You see a lot of wildlife, like in there you see a deer go by.
4 miles away, a Scituate man is recovering after a coyote attacked him and his dog Thursday evening. Rhode Island DEM believed the two may be connected and that the coyote had rabies.
We don't know this yet. We're trying to confirm it. It'd be great news that this rabid coyote was dead. But we need to confirm that by going through this process of checking out the bite marks.
The two attacks raising concern for residents in the area.
You're still vulnerable, but yeah, look over your shoulder.
Much more aware now. Take a stick with me or something.
And raising alarm bells for state officials.
In Johnson and Scituate, please be aware of your surroundings.
If confronted with an aggressive coyote, Mike Healy says to make yourself big and loud. Don't run or turn your back. And don't leave food out for wild animals. It only draws them into your home or your neighbors.
We can only complicate things if we do things like feed coyotes or, even unintentionally.
That was Leanna Folk reporting. By the way.
All right. So now you see that these coyotes are not playing around. They're serious animals. They're very serious animals, and they're not dogs. They are predators, and they don't really care whether they predatorize you or not, or your kids, or your dogs, or your cats, or what have you. Yeah, they'll generally run away from you unless they're rabid, in which case they won't. So whatever you do, if you get bit by a coyote, make sure you get those shots. They're not pleasant, but they're not like they used to be, where they used to give them to you in your abdomen because they had to give you about 1,000 of them. It's a little better than it was then, but they're still kind of painful. But get yourself protected, because once you have rabies, you're done. There's only been one recorded survivor of rabies ever. This is the Wells Report. Back with more coming up in just a moment. Be right back.
Nobody wants to get ripped off, broken into, or robbed, but nobody wants to pay a lot of money to have their home protected either. I've got an offer to tell you about to provide home security for your home for less than $1 a day. For real, with no installation or equipment charges. And this is from a company rated #1 by a leading consumer research company. According to the facts, most of you won't even call unless there's a burglary in your neighborhood or something bad happened. So let's give you a reason. Save money. For less than $1 a day with no other costs, you can get your home secured. Plus, get a lifetime equipment replacement warranty. You need protection for your home. Call the Home Security Hotline right now.
Get your home secured for less than $1 a day, and every caller today immediately qualifies for free installation. Call now.
Call 877-275-0973. 877-275-0973. That's 877-275-0973.
If you're living with diabetes and using insulin, you know the pain of pricking your fingers over and over again. By wearing a small device called a continuous glucose monitor, or CGM, you can reduce the pain of pricking your fingers right away. If you use insulin daily, you might be eligible to get your own continuous glucose monitor. So call the US Med Diabetic Health Hotline today and learn about the latest CGM technology. Not only can a CGM immediately reduce pain, it's accurate, easy to use, and helps you make better diabetes treatment decisions. And if you have Medicare or private insurance, you can see if you qualify for a CGM at little or no out-of-pocket cost. We'll also provide free shipping of your new CGM, and we'll bill your insurance company for you. If you use insulin daily, you might be eligible to get your own continuous glucose monitor. So call the US Med Diabetic Health Hotline to see if you qualify for a CGM at little to no out-of-pocket cost. How would you like to get high-speed internet for your home for less than $2 a day? That's right, for about $50 a month, you'll get lightning fast internet. Are you paying less than $50 a month right now for your internet? Then call Whole Home Connect right now for blazing fast internet at $50 a month with no price increases, no hidden fees, no contracts, no equipment fees. It's a great deal. And guess what? You can try it for 15 days. If you don't like it, you get your money back, but you're gonna love it, and you're gonna love the price. Internet for your home for $50 a month. That's less than $2 a day. Plus, no contracts, no equipment fees, and our 15-day guarantee. Call now.
Call 866-245-6155. That's 866-245-6155. Again, 866-245-6155. 866-245-6155.
Greece is cheap.
But the airfare costs a fortune.
Paris?
Not much closer, and again, airfare...
What about Puerto Vallarta?
Let's face it, flying anywhere is just too expensive.
Wait, what's this? Low-cost airlines.
With one call to low-cost airlines, you'll drastically slash your travel costs. We're talking insanely low airline prices to any of your favorite destinations. Where would you like to go? London, Rome, Costa Rica, Australia?
Wow, that's cheap.
So why wait? Call now to learn how crazy cheap it is to fly anywhere in the U.S. or international. Our prices are so low, we can't publish them. The only way to get them is to call to instantly hear the most amazing best deals on airline travel. It's that easy. So call now and start packing.
Call 877-512-3895. That's 877-512-3895. 877-512-3895.
This is the Wells Report. John David Wells at your service. Our telephone number is 817-379-2172. And so, more information from the Hunter Biden family, President Biden circle of assertion has come back to the fore in the form of Tony Bobulinski. He is a former business associate of the Biden family. He testified on Capitol Hill in some fashion yesterday. It was behind closed doors. It was a transcribed interview. It was under oath. And the testimony is characterized as unshakable by the people at Fox News. There is a report on this. Fox News special report with Brett Baer covered the story yesterday, and here is what that report looked like on the Wells Report.
Former business associate of Hunter Biden says he met with Hunter's father in 2017. Now President Joe Biden denies that meeting. Today, Tony Bobulinski told his side of the story to congressional lawmakers under oath. Correspondent David Spunt has details. Good evening, David.
Brett, good evening. Tony Bobulinski, Hunter Biden's former business associate, started taking questions at 10 a.m. He is still behind closed doors right now. He spoke to both Republicans and Democrats, and he claimed once again President Biden is lying. Bobulinski says he personally met with Joe Biden in California twice in May 2017. He said today in his opening statement, in part, "It is clear to me that Joe Biden was the brand being sold by the Biden family. Joe Biden was more than a participant in and beneficiary of his family's business. He was an enabler, despite being buffered by a complex scheme to maintain plausible deniability." Republicans believe Bobulinski.
Joe Biden had reached out to Hunter Biden's business partners in the past shows that Joe Biden is definitely involved. He's the brand.
Brett, Democrats say Bobulinski's interview was heavy on inference and missing something else.
He tries to link Joe Biden and the president, but then provides no evidence. So there is actually zero evidence in his opening statement that links the president.
Bobulinski insists he has plenty of evidence, including what he says is a text message he sent to the president's brother right there, Jim Biden, obtained by Fox News Digital. He says that he wrote, "Great to meet you and spend some time together. Please thank Joe for his time. Was great to talk. Thanks, Tony B." Now, this impeachment probe into the president will culminate over the next 2 weeks. The president's brother, as I mentioned, Jim, will come and answer questions behind closed doors next week. And 2 weeks from tomorrow, Hunter Biden will testify on Capitol Hill under oath 2 months after he was originally supposed to do so. Brett?
David, there's a new filing tonight from special counsel David Weiss. What's that about?
Yes, Brett, late this afternoon, lawyers from the special counsel's office filed a brief with the federal court in Delaware, and the filing includes images of what investigators say are drugs and drug paraphernalia on Hunter Biden's phone. These are a few of the images included in that new court filing. The special counsel said these images were on Hunter's phone back in 2018, around the time the government says he lied on a federal gun form when he said no to a question about being addicted to drugs. He's fighting those charges in Delaware federal court. A trial date has not yet been set.
All right, that was from special report yesterday. Bobulinski worked with Hunter Biden to create the joint venture Sinohawk Holdings with Chinese energy company CEFC, and said he met with Joe Biden in 2017, providing unshakable testimony behind closed doors at the House Oversight and Judiciary Committees yesterday. His testimony, which came as part of the House impeachment inquiry against President Biden, lasted for more than 8 hours. A source familiar with the testimony told Fox News that he testified he personally met with Biden in May of 2017 in Los Angeles on the sidelines of the Milken Conference for somewhere between 45 minutes to an hour. President Biden, on May 13th, actually then former Vice President Joe Biden, spoke at the conference, hosting, quote, "a conversation with the 47th Vice President of the United States, Joe Biden," unquote. Days after the May 2nd, 2017 meeting, the now infamous May 13th, 2017 email, which included a discussion of remuneration packages for 6 people in a business deal with Chinese energy firm CEFC. The email appeared to identify Biden as chair/vice chair, depending on the agreement with that Chinese conglomerate. It is a reference to the now bankrupt CEFC China Energy Company. The email included a note that, quote, Hunter had some office expectations. He will elaborate, unquote. A proposed equity split references 20 for H, 10 held by H for the big guy, question mark, unquote, with no further details. Bobulinski testified yesterday that Joe Biden is the big guy. Bobulinski, since 2020, said the big guy was Joe Biden, but IRS whistleblowers Gary Shapley and Joseph Ziegler, who claimed that politics had influenced the years-long federal investigation into Hunter Biden, also said the big guy was known to be Joe Biden. Meanwhile, Bobulinski testified that from his direct personal experience, it is clear that Joe Biden was the brand being sold by the Biden family. You saw just a moment ago a couple of Democrats saying, but this guy is making this assertion, and yet he does not have any hard evidence linking the president to this money, to these deals, etc. Now, Bobulinski talks about plausible deniability. It certainly exists. It is plausible and it's deniable that the president had anything to do with any of this. And what we don't do on the Wells Report, by the way, is we don't run with accusations as if they are actual convictions. We don't do that. What we do is give you the information. You decide whether or not it's a conviction or not. That's something that a jury would decide. We don't try people on this broadcast. This is not a courtroom. It is a place for interaction. If you happen to believe that President Biden is guilty, if you believe that his family has been profiting from the brand Joe Biden, well, that's fine. Share your information. If you disagree, same thing. Share your information. 817-379-2172, 817-379-2172. Simple case of the matter is that this is what trials are for. Unfortunately, the only trial available to the President of the United States or against the President of the United States is impeachment. And that turns into a grotesque display of political partisanship. And that's what we see time and time again. It's unavoidable. It is a political remedy to a circumstance that cannot be remedied any other way, in my opinion. The President of the United States, whether you believe it or not, or whether you agree with it or not, must have immunity from prosecution. That is the way it is. And all these people that are making brave assertions that no one is above the law, well, except those members of our party that have broken the law. I mean, that's just painfully ridiculous. But the President of the United States cannot be taken down by a local prosecutor in some state for some political reason. Just as the president, a former president of the United States and now a presidential candidate, cannot be removed from a ballot for some kind of specification of insurrection that has yet to be charged or yet to be proven. It cannot be done. By the way, I had a heart attack yesterday. I didn't actually have a heart attack. It was a figurative heart attack yesterday when somebody on the chat room said, gosh, what was the Supreme Court vote? Well, I immediately started scrambling around trying to find out if I'd missed that vote. I have not. The Supreme Court has not issued their decision on that Colorado ballot case. But getting back to the Bidens, this is why we have this process. It is up to the House of Representatives to be able to complete their inquiry and make a vote as to whether or not President Joe Biden will be the next president impeached. And as we just saw with the impeachment of DHS Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas, that is not a foregone conclusion. That is not a foregone conclusion in any way, shape, or form. So we don't know whether this is ever going to get out of the House of Representatives, let alone over to the Senate for a trial. And I got to be perfectly honest with you, the template of the Mayorkas impeachment, which happened yesterday, is probably going to show itself very clearly in this particular issue regarding President Biden. Now, there's an awful lot of evidentiary information. I don't call it evidence because it hasn't been actually entered into a court of law through due process and admitted as evidence. Until that is, it's just information. And so none of this has actually made it to the evidentiary level, but it is evidentiary information that will be presented as such. And so when that happens, from what we understand, these are unassailable records. Once again, they do not convict anybody of anything. What they do is they create a platform for some very difficult questions that the Biden family has not yet seen fit to answer. Now, while I absolutely advocate for presidential immunity from all of this partisan gobbledygook regarding prosecutions of a president, that certainly sits with President Biden. But he didn't commit the crimes that he's being accused of, or the supposed crimes he's being accused of, while he was the president. This happened while he was the vice president. And so the murky idea of presidential immunity, boy, I'll tell you, once again, one of these precedents has been put forward. Because President Biden could likewise be charged following his presidency, just as President Trump was. These gauntlets were thrown on the floor. Nobody picked them up. And the circumstance goes like this. Either Joe Biden is going to be impeached and tried in the Senate, or he at some point is going to be charged. Now you're saying, well, wait a minute, John. Wasn't there a special counsel report on these classified documents? Isn't that over with now? Well, theoretically it is. However, we're not talking about that. We're talking about influence peddling. And that is a high crime and misdemeanor. In fact, it's such a high crime and misdemeanor, it's one of the very few crimes that's actually spelled forward or spelled out in the Constitution of the United States. And so the President of the United States, it's absolutely inescapable not to see that there is some kind of something going on between a few countries in the United States. We know that the Biden family, while Vice President Biden was Vice President Biden, we know that there was vice presidential interference in the internal affairs of Ukraine. We know that there was money that exchanged hands based on what looks like and is alleged as being protection for Hunter Biden while on the board of Burisma, the natural gas conglomerate out of the Ukraine. And so we know that's the case. Is that why we are supporting Ukraine as much as we possibly can? We've supported Ukraine with anti-war material money more than any other nation in the history of our country. What are we getting for our money? I just don't know. I don't know. I don't think we're getting much. So there's that. There's also another small problem. What's the story with China? What is the influence purchased, if purchased, from President Biden with China, from China? What is that? China floats a spy craft across the United States. The president does nothing? Really? The president says everybody's got to buy an electric car. Where did the batteries come from? China? Really? We have all of these things happening, but just exactly why is China so deeply involved in them? A Chinese official said when President Biden, when then candidate Biden was elected to the presidency, we'll be able to affect American politics from the very top. Oh, really? Where did that come from? Well, a high Chinese government communist official. And then there's Iran. From what we understand, Iran is on the doorstep of building a nuclear weapon. Okay. How did that happen? How did that happen when President Obama sat down with Joe Biden and John Kerry and came up with this deal that made it impossible for Iran to have a nuclear weapon? Oh, yeah, that's right. That's right. You see, Donald Trump essentially walked away from the deal. Oh, really? Why did he walk away from the deal? Well, because the United States is going to be complicit in the development of a nuclear weapon for Iran if that deal continued. And what kind of influence was bought and paid for by Iran? Certainly enough. We waited 6 days to avenge the soldiers lost by Iran-backed militias. We waited 6 days before we pounded those guys, and we didn't even pound Iran at all. I'll tell you what, one thing is for certain. If indeed some of these influence peddling schemes are actually true, we can certainly say that if you do business with the Bidens for influence, you get your money's worth.
Greece is cheap.
But the airfare costs a fortune.
Paris?
Not much closer, and again, airfare...
What about Puerto Vallarta?
Let's face it, flying anywhere is just too expensive.
Wait, what's this? Low-cost airlines.
With one call to low-cost airlines, you'll drastically slash your travel costs. We're talking insanely low airline prices to any of your favorite destinations. Where would you like to go? London, Rome, Costa Rica, Australia?
Wow, that's cheap.
So why wait? Call now to learn how crazy cheap it is to fly anywhere in the U.S. or international. Our prices are so low, we can't publish them. The only way to get them is to call to instantly hear the most amazing best deals on airline travel. It's that easy. So call now and start packing.
Call 877-512-3895. That's 877-512-3895. 877-512-3895.
How would you like to get high-speed internet for your home for less than $2 a day? That's right, for about $50 a month, you'll get lightning fast internet. Are you paying less than $50 a month right now for your internet? Then call Whole Home Connect right now for blazing fast internet at $50 a month with no price increases, no hidden fees, no contracts, no equipment fees. It's a great deal. And guess what? You can try it for 15 days. If you don't like it, you get your money back, but you're gonna love it, and you're gonna love the price. Internet for your home for $50 a month. That's less than $2 a day. Plus, no contracts, no equipment fees, and our 15-day guarantee. Call now.
Call 866-245-6155. That's 866-245-6155. Again, 866-245-6155. 866-245-6155.
This is the Wells Report. John David Wells at your service. Our telephone number 817-379-2172. The poll came out over the weekend. It was from ABC News Ipsos. It said that after the special counsel Robert Hur described President Biden as a well-meaning elderly man with a poor memory, that 86% of Americans now believe President Biden, who's 81 years old, is too old to serve another term. That same survey included 59% who surveyed said that both Biden and former President Donald Trump, who's 77, are also too old or to hold the office. 27% said only Biden is too old. 3% said only Trump is too old. That kind of shows you a little bit of a statistical wobble in this. There were only 528 adults aged 18 or older. The margin of sampling area is plus or minus almost 5 points. So you can see that some of this stuff is sketchy. They didn't put enough people into the survey. And so all you can do is look at this and in broad terms, 86% of Americans say that President Biden is too old. Okay, who is not too old? Well, that would be Vice President Kamala Harris. Vice President Kamala Harris immediately stepped up and said, I am ready to serve. Here's a report from CBS News.
So the vice president was pretty clear that she is ready to serve. And of course, this question normally doesn't come up as much for vice presidents, but this is something she is having to face because she is vice president to the oldest president. And now with this her report, this is going to keep coming up for her as Republicans try to make this an issue on the campaign trail. The other thing that was interesting from my interview with her is I spent a lot of time talking to her about abortion and the way she's talking about abortion rights. This is an issue that a rare issue that Democrats have an advantage on that we've seen in polls. And the way she's talking about it is especially interesting because she's not really holding back. She's getting into pretty explicit details in a way we don't usually see elected officials do. And she said part of that is trying to get people to feel some empathy and to see what is actually going on in these states. And she's using that sort of former prosecutor background. She's worked on sexual assault cases to really get her message out. So, I asked her if she feels like she needs to convince voters she's ready. And she really, shut that down and said she feels ready. She thinks voters can see that while she's on the campaign trail on this big issue of abortion rights.
Tarini Mara-Gay here with the New York Times. Wondering, the vice president has been out on the trail a lot lately. Do you expect that you're going to see a different role for her if Joe Biden does win re-election? Is she doing anything special behind the scenes too that maybe the public isn't aware of to prepare in the eventuality that she would have to step up, God forbid?
We have seen her take on more of a national security type portfolio. She has been involved in, in advising the president on the war in the Middle East. She's been on calls with Benjamin Netanyahu. She has been pushing the administration to adopt sort of a more empathetic posture towards Palestinians and to focus more on a post-war Gaza plan. We know she's talking about that more. She gave that big speech in Dubai a few weeks ago. So she's taking on more sort of a national security portfolio. She's also now leading the White House Office on Gun Violence Prevention. So they are trying to give her more visibility as these questions about the president's age keep coming up. And of course, now with this special counsel report are going to become an even bigger campaign issue.
And so that is Tarini Parti. She is the person who was interviewing Kamala Harris for the Wall Street Journal. By the way, that was MSNBC and not CBS. Sorry for that error. So the circumstance goes like this. Kamala Harris says she is ready to lead. Do you agree? 817-379-2172. 817-379-2172. Do you believe that Kamala Harris is ready to lead the United States of America as president if Joe Biden, as many people expect him to do, steps down? She told the Wall Street Journal that I am ready to serve. There's no question about that. She also said that everyone who sees her on the job walks away fully aware of her capacity to lead. That, of course, is a double-sided coin. Insofar as that doesn't mean that she is ready to lead successfully. Also, you noticed that I believe it was Mara Gay from the New York Times who was talking with Tarini Parti. Said, is she working on some other thing to perhaps burnish her credentials in case she has to step up to the presidency? And then she said, God forbid. Again, this is one of those double-edged swords. It can be, God forbid, we don't want President Biden to pass away. Of course, none of us do. But it could also be, God forbid, that Kamala Harris actually step into the presidency. I'm just putting it out there. My own personal opinion, I'm sorry, Kamala Harris is not equipped to be the president of the United States. That is not a statement of gender bias on my part. It is a statement of what I consider to be proven reality. Nikki Haley, she could be the president of the United States. Hillary Clinton could be the president of the United States. I believe Tulsi Gabbard could also step into that role. There are a lot of females that could step into that role. Unfortunately, I do not believe that Kamala Harris is one of them. This is the Wells Report. My name is John David Wells. By the way, somebody said, "Did I hear you had a heart attack?" It was figurative. I was just surprised by something. It is the Wells Report. Hour number 1 in the books. Hour 2 is next.
How would you like to get high-speed internet for your home for less than $2 a day? That's right, for about $50 a month, you'll get lightning fast internet. Are you paying less than $50 a month right now for your internet? Then call Whole Home Connect right now for blazing fast internet at $50 a month with no price increases, no hidden fees, no contracts, no equipment fees. It's a great deal. And guess what? You can try it for 15 days. If you don't like it, you get your money back, but you're gonna love it, and you're gonna love the price. Internet for your home for $50 a month. That's less than $2 a day. Plus, no contracts, no equipment fees, and our 15-day guarantee. Call now.
Call 866-245-6155. That's 866-245-6155. Again, 866-245-6155. 866-245-6155.
Nobody wants to get ripped off, broken into, or robbed, but nobody wants to pay a lot of money to have their home protected either. I've got an offer to tell you about to provide home security for your home for less than $1 a day. For real, with no installation or equipment charges. And this is from a company rated #1 by a leading consumer research company. According to the facts, most of you won't even call unless there's a burglary in your neighborhood or something bad happened. So let's give you a reason. Save money. For less than $1 a day with no other costs, you can get your home secured. Plus, get a lifetime equipment replacement warranty. You need protection for your home. Call the Home Security Hotline right now.
Get your home secured for less than $1 a day, and every caller today immediately qualifies for free installation. Call now.
Call 877-275-0973. 877-275-0973. That's 877-275-0973.
Hey, thanks for joining us this morning for the Wells Report, and make sure you share us with all your friends on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, Rumble, Patreon, and don't forget to check out our Substack column, which will be coming up a little bit later on this afternoon. When you do all this, make sure you subscribe. Make sure you give us those thumbs up. They are really important. Check the notification box so you know when we're on the air, and whatever you do, join us every morning, Monday through Friday, 9 to 11 a.m. Central Time, for the Wells Report.
Greece is cheap.
But the airfare costs a fortune.
Paris?
Not much closer, and again, airfare...
What about Puerto Vallarta?
Let's face it, flying anywhere is just too expensive.
Wait, what's this? Low-cost airlines.
With one call to low-cost airlines, you'll drastically slash your travel costs. We're talking insanely low airline prices to any of your favorite destinations. Where would you like to go? London, Rome, Costa Rica, Australia?
Wow, that's cheap.
So why wait? Call now to learn how crazy cheap it is to fly anywhere in the U.S. or international. Our prices are so low, we can't publish them. The only way to get them is to call to instantly hear the most amazing best deals on airline travel. It's that easy. So call now and start packing.
Call 877-512-3895. That's 877-512-3895. 877-512-3895.
If you're living with diabetes and using insulin, you know the pain of pricking your fingers over and over again. By wearing a small device called a continuous glucose monitor, or CGM, you can reduce the pain of pricking your fingers right away. If you use insulin daily, you might be eligible to get your own continuous glucose monitor. So call the US Med Diabetic Health Hotline today and learn about the latest CGM technology. Not only can a CGM immediately reduce pain, it's accurate, easy to use, and helps you make better diabetes treatment decisions. And if you have Medicare or private insurance, you can see if you qualify for a CGM at little or no out-of-pocket cost. We'll also provide free shipping of your new CGM, and we'll bill your insurance company for you. If you use insulin daily, you might be eligible to get your own continuous glucose monitor. So call the US Med Diabetic Health Hotline to see if you qualify for a CGM at little to no out-of-pocket cost.
North to south, coast to coast, around the world. This is the Wells Report. Good morning. My name is John David Wells. It's Valentine's Day. This is hour number 2 of this broadcast. Had a pretty good first hour. You should check it out if you have missed it. It's available to you on Facebook, YouTube, X, Twitch, Rumble, Patreon, all of those, Facebook too. So check it out because this is a pretty good show. What do? We report the news honestly and fairly. We analyze the news for fact and bias. In other words, we depropagandize the mainstream media. It's not easy. It is not. And because the mainstream media is cooked. In other words, they tell you what their politics are, not what happened in the world today. We try to remedy that situation. We do make commentary, which is not news. As a matter of fact, when I'm talking about commentary, it's opinion. And when I make an opinion, 9 times out of 10, I make it over here. So you have some idea that there is a different place for different parts of this broadcast. This is where opinion and commentary can be seen. This is where news is. Get it? All right? And most of the time I'll just say, in my opinion, or here's what I believe, etc. But I want to make it plain that we are not somebody that, not a broadcast that tries to inflict our opinions as fact or news. In fact, your job is to tell me what your opinion is too. When I tell you mine, you tell me yours, and we debate. News analysis, commentary, and debate. This is the Wells Report. Donald Trump ignored the rule of walking softly through the garden of most souls, those souls being those possessed by people running NATO countries, when he had some very provocative things to say regarding NATO. As you know, President Trump is not a big fan of the alliance insofar as it's not that it's a bad idea. The defense of Europe is obviously important, especially after World War II, up until the dissolution of the old Soviet Union in the 90s, the early 90s. And so what had happened is in the intervening time, the near half century, the people of the United States, you and me, footed the bill mainly for the NATO defense of Western Europe. It was dang expensive. It's part of the $34 trillion worth of national debt that we currently have right now. Because we, the people of the United States, paid for the defense of Europe. I had the good fortune to go to Europe. I saw an outgrowth of that myself. All of these Western European countries refusing to take care of their security needs had all kinds of extra money, up to and including being able to, in France, redo the gold leaf on the Palace of Versailles. And that's not a small job, by the way. All of the window frames, gold leaf. A lot of the fencing, gold leaf. That was an expensive project. Why were they able to afford it? Why didn't they just use gold paint? Well, because the United States has been paying for the defense of Western Europe for all those years, and they didn't really have to spend that money on their own. And so they just spend money to decorate the place, I guess. Well, that kind of infuriated me, and it certainly has driven President Trump to the point of saying something that a lot of people just don't understand or don't want to understand and have strong feelings about. Specifically, let me give you a little bit of this. This is Donald Trump and the statement that got everybody upset when he was talking about NATO the other day.
This morning, growing fallout after former President Trump said he would encourage Russia to attack NATO allies who failed to meet agreed upon defense spending goals.
No, I would not protect you. In fact, I would encourage them to do whatever the hell they want. You got to pay. You got to pay your bills.
Trump doubling down on social media. NATO has to equalize, and now. NATO countries do not pay set dues to the alliance and do not owe the U.S. money, but they do commit to spending a certain amount on national defense, and most of them have not reached that goal. The White House underscoring NATO's importance to national and European security. The chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff telling NBC Trump's threat also puts U.S. credibility at stake.
We have an alliance, and we have a strong alliance. I think we have a responsibility to uphold those alliances.
Overseas, the reaction was swift. Poland's foreign minister responded by noting that Poland supported the U.S. in Afghanistan after 9/11, saying we didn't send the bills for that to Washington. Alliances also strengthen the United States.
I think this is exactly what Putin loves to hear. Our strength is our unity. And if we're not united, that makes us weaker.
Some Republicans are pushing back on Trump's comments, but his supporters are standing firmly behind him.
But if you're not going to defend your own country, why should our taxpayers defend it for them?
Republican Senator Lindsey Graham going one step further, now suggesting U.S. funding for Ukraine and Israel should be considered alone. This morning, senators greenlit more aid for those countries with the help of some Republicans, despite opposition from Trump. Trump's Republican rival Nikki Haley also blasted his comments, warning the last thing they should do is side with Putin. But as Trump gets closer to becoming the GOP presidential nominee, his grip and influence on the party appears to grow stronger. Em Nguyen, ABC News, Washington.
And so you see it for yourself. President Trump says you got to pay your bills. You have to, if you are a member of NATO, pay your NATO dues. And by the way, even though this ABC News article just spent time telling you that the countries don't have set dues, they do, in fact. And those dues are based on the gross domestic product of their own countries. It is a small percentage in the main, in other words, 2 or 3%, but it adds up. As a matter of fact, the requirement or the dues for Germany are somewhere around 100 billion euro. That's not a small bill, but that's the agreement. There's another part of that agreement that's called Section 5 of the NATO Treaty, and the NATO Treaty says that an attack on one is an attack on all. And the president says, if you haven't paid your dues, we're not coming. And that is that's probably a good political statement, but I doubt very sincerely that it's grounded in reality. What that is a statement by a guy who is running for the presidency of the United States, a former president, saying, if I get this job back, you better start paying your NATO dues. Now, obviously, the United States is not going to leave Western Europe hanging out to dry in case the evil Russia or somebody else decides to attack that part of the continent. Obviously, that's not the case, but the bully pulpit is very, very effective. And the people of the United States have been screwed over by NATO for decades. And that is simply not up for discussion. Even in this ABC News report, it said, hey, there are people that are behind in their treaty obligations. They are. And yeah, President Trump is putting it to him, saying, you really got to do something about this. He did it while he was the president of the United States, and he's done it now. Now, President Biden had a completely different take on the matter. As a matter of fact, he was the author of comments that were called blistering. Here's that look.
Here in Washington, President Biden today came out swinging against former President Donald Trump, calling his comments about Russia invading NATO countries shameful and dumb. The president says Trump's remarks raise the stakes for Congress to approve new funding to support Ukraine, Israel, and Taiwan. CBS's Ed O'Keefe has details from the White House.
The former president has sent a dangerous and shockingly, frankly, un-American signal to the world.
President Biden leveled a blistering attack today on Donald Trump for recently saying he wouldn't defend NATO allies from a Russian attack if they don't pay full dues to the alliance.
Let's say that happened. No, I would not protect you. In fact, I would encourage them to do whatever the hell they want. You got to pay. You got to pay your bills.
Can you imagine a former president of the United States saying that? The whole world heard it. The worst thing is he means it. No other president in our history has ever bowed down to a Russian dictator. Well, let me say this as clearly as I can. I never will. For God's sake, it's dumb, it's shameful, it's dangerous, it's un-American.
The president spoke after an all-night marathon debate in the Senate led to early morning passage of an emergency national security spending bill.
The bill, as amended, passes.
It would provide billions in military assistance to Ukraine, Israel, and Taiwan, but says nothing about U.S.-Mexico border security. And that's why House Speaker Mike Johnson says he won't bring it up for a vote.
National security begins with border security. We have said that all along.
House Republicans are increasingly taking cues from Trump, who has said they shouldn't support any border security deal that could benefit Democrats and President Biden. The president today said the stakes are bigger than that.
And I say to the House members, House Republicans, you got to decide. Are you going to stand up for freedom? Or are you going to side with terror and tyranny? Will we stand with America or with Trump?
Meanwhile, tonight, House Republicans voted to impeach Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas amid their opposition to his handling of border security. He is the first cabinet secretary impeached since 1876, but there's no guarantee the Democratic-controlled Senate will hold an actual trial.
That's Ed O'Keefe of CBS News talking about what the president had to say. Now, there were a couple of things in that statement where he says, I'm never going to bow down to a Russian dictator. Okay, Mr. President, how about a Chinese one? Just asking. The other thing I wanted to bring up on that particular score is the simple case of the matter is as follows. I had no problem with America floating most of the expenses of NATO. I have a much bigger problem with the United States floating most of the expenses for the United Nations, but that's another topic. I didn't have much problem with it. I realized that, we were being taken advantage of, and it heartened me when President Trump became the president in 2016 and did something about it. I suspect that if he becomes the president in 2024, if he does that again, he will do more of it again. But that being said, when it came right down to the European Union and their energy needs, instead of coming to the United States to defray some of the cost of a half a century of Western European security, national security for all of those countries, did they come to the United States for their energy needs? No. They went to the very entity that threatened them for that half century, that American taxpayers paid the cost of defending Western Europe from that entity, and that was Russia. They went to Russia for their energy needs. Okay. That's okay with me. All right, you've chosen your direction. You've chosen that, hey, you know what? The Russians aren't that bad after all. They've got all that natural gas and everything, and we don't have to deal with those ridiculous, ugly Americans. Blech. Okay. Well, fantastic. Pay your NATO dues. That's what ended it for me. That's what stopped the entire thing for me. And so here we are. We are talking about NATO, President Trump. Look, One thing is for sure, there are two kinds of American politicians. There are globalists, people who believe that the United States should be a beacon of get along with everybody else, up to and including reducing our national pride and capabilities to the level of people behind us in order to get along. And then there are people who believe that America and the American people should come first. I'm of that camp. I am not necessarily a Trump supporter, not at this particular moment. It's too early. But what I am saying is this. The people of the United States have paid far too much money to be treated like this by our own government. That's just my opinion. What's yours? 817-379-2172. It is the Wells Report. We'll be back with more in just a moment.
Greece is cheap.
But the airfare costs a fortune.
Paris?
Not much closer, and again, airfare...
What about Puerto Vallarta?
Let's face it, flying anywhere is just too expensive.
Wait, what's this? Low-cost airlines.
With one call to low-cost airlines, you'll drastically slash your travel costs. We're talking insanely low airline prices to any of your favorite destinations. Where would you like to go? London, Rome, Costa Rica, Australia?
Wow, that's cheap.
So why wait? Call now to learn how crazy cheap it is to fly anywhere in the U.S. or international. Our prices are so low, we can't publish them. The only way to get them is to call to instantly hear the most amazing best deals on airline travel. It's that easy. So call now and start packing.
Call 877-512-3895. That's 877-512-3895. 877-512-3895.
If you're living with diabetes and using insulin, you know the pain of pricking your fingers over and over again. By wearing a small device called a continuous glucose monitor, or CGM, you can reduce the pain of pricking your fingers right away. If you use insulin daily, you might be eligible to get your own continuous glucose monitor. So call the US Med Diabetic Health Hotline today and learn about the latest CGM technology. Not only can a CGM immediately reduce pain, it's accurate, easy to use, and helps you make better diabetes treatment decisions. And if you have Medicare or private insurance, you can see if you qualify for a CGM at little or no out-of-pocket cost. We'll also provide free shipping of your new CGM, and we'll bill your insurance company for you. If you use insulin daily, you might be eligible to get your own continuous glucose monitor. So call the US Med Diabetic Health Hotline to see if you qualify for a CGM at little to no out-of-pocket cost.
Nobody wants to get ripped off, broken into, or robbed, but nobody wants to pay a lot of money to have their home protected either. I've got an offer to tell you about to provide home security for your home for less than $1 a day. For real, with no installation or equipment charges. And this is from a company rated #1 by a leading consumer research company. According to the facts, most of you won't even call unless there's a burglary in your neighborhood or something bad happened. So let's give you a reason. Save money. For less than $1 a day with no other costs, you can get your home secured. Plus, get a lifetime equipment replacement warranty. You need protection for your home. Call the Home Security Hotline right now.
Get your home secured for less than $1 a day, and every caller today immediately qualifies for free installation. Call now.
Call 877-275-0973. 877-275-0973. That's 877-275-0973.
This is the Wells Report. My name is John David Wells. Our telephone number, 817-379-2172. 817-379-2172. George Santos, by all accounts, is what is referred to as a fabulist. Someone who makes things up as he goes along, alters the prevailing law or customs to suit his particular circumstance and narrative. And it cost him his job. He was a New York congressman. Well, he got tossed because of his fabulism. And so that was the way that worked. Well, voters in New York's 3rd congressional district had a special election yesterday, and indeed picked the person that they wanted to represent them from the New York 3rd. Here's the story from MSNBC.
To tie today's two big stories together, now you see why House Republicans wanted to impeach Alejandro Mayorkas before this special election, because they did it with a single vote margin. If they did not have that extra vote, or if Tom Suozzi was sworn in for that impeachment, it would not have passed. That is the importance of one single vote in this wafer-thin House Republican majority. Yes, voters decided to flip this district back from blue to red and now back to blue. It was won by George Santos in 2022 after, as Steve just laid out, Joe Biden won it comfortably in 2020. It's one of those fluid suburban bellwether battlegrounds that has been so decisive and has tracked the national mood so closely, which is why Democrats behind me feel so happy about this victory. It's not just about this one race. It's not just about Mazi versus Suozzi, as this contest had been affectionately called around here. It's about the national environment and what this looks like going into the fall election. Voters were concerned about the same national issues that are playing out elsewhere. They were concerned about immigration. They were concerned about crime. This has been a major vulnerability for Democrats, but one thing Tom Suozzi was able to do is go on offense with the border, endorse this bipartisan deal and to toughen asylum and border laws, and portray Mazi Pilip, who rejected it, as enthralled to the extremists within her party. That is the argument he repeatedly made on the debate stage, that he made down the stretch. It was unclear whether it would work, but now we have our answer. It worked. He did 20 points better than the Democratic candidate in the Queens slice of this district back in 2022. And Nassau County, where Republicans have had a real resurgence over the last several years, they felt very good and energized going into this. Tom Suozzi is leading in the Nassau, the redder part of this district. It looks at this moment, Stephanie, like a decisive victory.
All right, so Tom Suozzi is now the representative of the New York 3rd. He faced off against Nassau County legislator Mazi Pilip in the race to replace embattled former Representative George Santos. While the election may seem like a simple local race, Americans across the country watch the Long Island area district closely. That's because Republicans were fighting to keep their razor-thin majority in the House. Though Suozzi's win shifts power in the lower chamber toward Democrats. And so Suozzi reclaimed his former seat. That happened on last evening in a significant blow to House Republicans, which will soon have less breathing room to pass partisan legislation. Suozzi's victory changes the party breakdown in the House to 219 to 213. That means Republicans can now only afford 2 GOP defections if they want to pass anything without Democrat support, which brings us to something else. This majority minority thing with the Republican Party, now they have 2 votes that they can lose on any particular given issue. Well, what we, the people of the United States, need to pay attention to are just exactly who those 2 votes are, or 3 or 4, that will sabotage Republican agenda items. I'm not saying that all the Republican agenda items are great. You know what? I'm not a Republican. I fired the party years ago. I've had enough of this ulterior dishonesty from the Republican Party. I just had enough. And so I'm a constitutional conservative. And so I find myself in a position where I really don't care whether the Republicans have a majority or not, insofar as a lot of Republicans will be more than happy to enable Democrat policy anyway. It doesn't make any difference what the majority is or what the lead is when it comes to votes in the United States government. That's the way I see it. How about you? 817-379-2172. Back in a moment.
Nobody wants wants to get ripped off, broken into, or robbed, but nobody wants to pay a lot of money to have their home protected either. I've got an offer to tell you about to provide home security for your home for less than $1 a day. For real, with no installation or equipment charges. And this is from a company rated #1 by a leading consumer research company. According to the facts, most of you won't even call unless there's a burglary in your neighborhood or something bad happened. So let's give you a reason. Save money. For less than $1 a day with no other costs, you can get your home secured. Plus, get a lifetime equipment replacement warranty. You need protection for your home. Call the Home Security Hotline right now.
Get your home secured for less than $1 a day, and every caller today immediately qualifies for free installation. Call now.
Call 877-275-0973. 877-275-0973. That's 877-275-0973.
If you're living with diabetes and using insulin, you know the pain of pricking your fingers over and over again. By wearing a small device called a continuous glucose monitor, or CGM, you can reduce the pain of pricking your fingers right away. If you use insulin daily, you might be eligible to get your own continuous glucose monitor. So call the US Med Diabetic Health Hotline today and learn about the latest CGM technology. Not only can a CGM immediately reduce pain, it's accurate, easy to use, and helps you make better diabetes treatment decisions. And if you have Medicare or private insurance, you can see if you qualify for a CGM at little or no out-of-pocket cost. We'll also provide free shipping of your new CGM, and we'll bill your insurance company for you. If you use insulin daily, you might be eligible to get your own continuous glucose monitor. So call the US Med Diabetic Health Hotline to see if you qualify for a CGM at little to no out-of-pocket cost. How would you like to get high-speed internet for your home for less than $2 a day? That's right, for about $50 a month, you'll get lightning fast internet. Are you paying less than $50 a month right now for your internet? Then call Whole Home Connect right now for blazing fast internet at $50 a month with no price increases, no hidden fees, no contracts, no equipment fees. It's a great deal. And guess what? You can try it for 15 days. If you don't like it, you get your money back, but you're gonna love it, and you're gonna love the price. Internet for your home for $50 a month. That's less than $2 a day. Plus, no contracts, no equipment fees, and our 15-day guarantee. Call now.
Call 866-245-6155. That's 866-245-6155. Again, 866-245-6155. 866-245-6155.
Greece is cheap.
But the airfare costs a fortune.
Paris?
Not much closer, and again, airfare...
What about Puerto Vallarta?
Let's face it, flying anywhere is just too expensive.
Wait, what's this? Low-cost airlines.
With one call to low-cost airlines, you'll drastically slash your travel costs. We're talking insanely low airline prices to any of your favorite destinations. Where would you like to go? London, Rome, Costa Rica, Australia?
Wow, that's cheap.
So why wait? Call now to learn how crazy cheap it is to fly anywhere in the U.S. or international. Our prices are so low, we can't publish them. The only way to get them is to call to instantly hear the most amazing best deals on airline travel. It's that easy. So call now and start packing.
Call 877-512-3895. That's 877-512-3895. 877-512-3895.
This is the Wells Report. My name is John David Wells, and this is a terribly important day on the calendar for all of you all. Irregardless, did I say irregardless? Regardless of who you happen to be romantically engaged with or who you would like to be romantically engaged with. Yes, it is the 14th day of February, year of our Lord 2024, the latest rendition of Valentine's Day. Ah, yes, Valentine's Day, when just before spring starts, things change from the typical workaday world into thoughts of love. Yes. Love. Where would we be without it? Well, we wouldn't be anywhere without it, actually. We'd essentially just be gone because love is the reason why there are human beings. And that being the case, all we can do is say the following. Regardless of where you are in the strata of romance, whether you are married, whether you are newly married, whether you are engaged to be married, whether you are dating someone seriously, or whether you are basically on the lowest rung of the ladder, at least learn the things necessary for you to perhaps have an amorous relationship in your future. And that is Valentine's Day. There are a lot of ways you can do it. In fact, one of the ways is to go out and buy some flowers. Flowers work, especially if you're a guy and you bring flowers to your girl. There's something magical about flowers. I don't really understand it. But women love flowers. So there's always flowers. I don't know exactly what happens between women to men. Occasionally there are gifts exchanged, which is always wonderful, beautiful, fantastic, magnificent. But it doesn't really happen as often as the requirement of the females of our society to be feted with flowers and perhaps chocolate. Chocolate is good. Flowers are good. But that being said, you must, whatever you do, you must pay your allegiance to Valentine's Day if you are going to have any success in the amorous pursuit. It doesn't make any difference who you're going after. If you're a guy going after a girl going after a guy, girl going after girl, and any combination thereof. You just have to be nice. That's one of the great things. It's one of the great things about Valentine's Day. Yesterday, I went to the store. I was going for bread and milk. Also, I was going for a couple of other things. I was trying to find a king cake because yesterday was indeed Mardi Gras, Fat Tuesday, or actually Tuesday Fat. And so I have lived in New Orleans. I lived there for 3.5 years, love the city. And every now and then I get that wistful, you know what it means to miss New Orleans. I do. And so what I wanted to do was go get a king cake so I could just sit back and reminisce about the fun times that I had in New Orleans, man. I love that city, even if it does stink, even if it is kind of trashy. There's a charm in it that you can't find anywhere else. As Skinny Tommy Chaney used to say when I was on Q93, he used to say, the greatest city east of Paris. Anyway, I went to go get a king cake. There were no king cakes left. I missed my opportunity, drat. But next year I will be less flat-footed. So it's Ash Wednesday today, and that's another story entirely, but it is also Valentine's Day. Martha says, Valentine's Day, since widowhood is just a day like any other day. Aw, if I'd have known that, I'd have bought you some flowers, darling. I didn't realize that you felt that way. The best day is tomorrow when I can buy candy at half price. Yep, that's a good one. All those flowers, those bouquets. They were like, I think it was a dozen roses. I think it was half a dozen roses. $22. What? I picked up a mixed flower bouquet, and I said, this is a nice bouquet. I wanted to get Susan some flowers, not because of Valentine's Day, just whenever I go out to buy groceries or something like that by myself, whenever I'm, essentially dispatched to go do something like that, I always buy her flowers just because. Just one of those things. And so I went out there to do that, and all the flowers, that particular bouquet was $25. And I went, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. So I'll come up with some other way of celebrating it. Martha says, I used to love it when George wrote nice things in my cards. Yeah. And I'm hoping that Central Market has cut up some king cake so I can get a piece and not have to buy a whole cake. Darling, you got to buy a whole cake. I'm sorry. Because you don't want to cut it up into pieces because there's a baby in there. And the baby signifies who's going to buy the next king cake. All right? So there you go. Let's see, tomorrow is my youngest son's birthday. He was born by C-section in 1987. Give him a kiss for me, would you? So, Valentine's Day. Love. What are you going to do? What are you planning for Valentine's Day? What are you going to do? I don't know. But there are going to be people that are looking for, say, for example, love. And as the song goes, I believe that some of them are looking for love in all the wrong places. And those are online dating sites. Yow. By the way, before we go any further, what is your advice to a successful, loving relationship? 817-379-2172, 817-379-2172. Do you have advice? I have some. I'll be sharing that with you a little bit later on. Valentine's Day fast approaching. Dating and romance are on the minds of many, says the writers of USA Today. The dating world has changed hugely in the past decade or so, shifting from chance encounters or blind dates to an experience that often starts online. Yay. Yeah, it makes me epically nervous. 44.2 million users of online dating services in the U.S. in 2020. The number is expected to increase to 53.3 million by 2025. This according to Statista, an online platform that specializes in data collection. Hundreds of millions of users globally. It's also big business. The online dating market is projected to reach revenues of $3 billion by next year. With numbers like that, it's safe to say the internet is all but taking over in the dating world in the U.S. and beyond. Some people prefer a more organic meet cute. Massive number of dating sites and apps means the platforms that cater to almost everyone, allowing people of different backgrounds, identities, and preferences to find potential love, regardless of geography, busy schedules, or hurdles. Would you use an online dating site? Yeah. Before there were online dating sites, there were Craigslists. There were Craigslist dates, and they showed up in various forms. And there are, like I said, an awful lot of online sites that have, shall we say, notorious reputations. But that's not love. That's something completely different. So the top 8 dating platforms, in case you're wondering, Tinder. Launched in 2012, Tinder is often hailed as the original modern dating app. Popularized the swiping format employed by many platforms since then, allowing users to swipe right to like somebody or left to dislike it. If both users swipe right on each other, they match and they can begin messaging. Tinder profiles and bios tend to be fairly simple, most prominently featuring photos, short blurbs of information about the person. Let's see, Bumble. Bumble was one of the original responders to Tinder, operating or adopting the swiping app style. It was launched in 2014, aimed to make the initial phases of dating more equal by encouraging women to make the first move. After an initial match, women in heterosexual pairings are given the opportunity to send a message before the man can. Bumble has also got features for finding friends or networking with other professionals independent of the dating site. Plenty of Fish. Founded in 2003, has been popular on and off over the last 20 years. Its primary selling point are features beyond just matching and chatting, giving people looking to meet others the option of doing other activities like play dating games and live streaming. Badoo. Badoo operates more like a social networking site than an old school dating website, allowing people to find others who live nearby and search for specifics. It was launched in 2006. Also features a swiping function similar to that of Tinder with right swiping, left swiping, and matching. Grindr was released in 2009, one of the first apps of its nature for gay men. Following the social network style of apps like Tinder, it's now also marketed toward bisexual and transgender people, although it's still largely associated with gay male relationships. OkCupid, founded in 2007. OkCupid has had a few makeovers over the years. Formerly a social networking and blind dating site, it now features typical online dating and forming new friendships features. Uses 50 to 100 questions to get started and can answer thousands to get better matches using the app's algorithm. It's too nerdy for me. Sorry about that. By the way, it costs $15. Coffee Meets Bagel has quickly expanded since its original New York City launch in 2012, moving to Boston, San Francisco, and expanding after an appearance on Shark Tank. It bills itself as a platform that eliminates endless swiping and instead focuses on people looking for serious long-term relationships. It's got some unique features like limiting the amount of swiping you can do in a day and video sites. Okay. Hinge was launched in 2013, served as an alternative to Tinder for people who wanted to focus less on looks and profiles. You don't necessarily need to match on Hinge to send somebody a message, but instead of swiping on profiles, users interact by liking a specific photo or personal prompt featured on another person's profile before they send a message. The prompts are selected by each user and are meant to focus on personality and interest. So would you use one of these things? I have over the years run across various changes in American society. For example, kids, and I was with a bunch of much younger people during my search and rescue class, which kept me off the air for about 3 weeks. And I was ridiculed for my lack of with-itness when it comes to technology. And I started saying, you do realize that I do a webcast every day, and I not only handle just audio, but I also switch a television broadcast, and I know all the technology. There are 4 computers here and a television switcher and cameras and all the things that I've got going on. I've got one computer that plays nothing but music. The music on the show is played by that computer. I mean, come on. I set all that stuff up. I'm not technologically withering or atrophied, shall we say. However, they gave me gas about it, which was funny. And I found out that a lot of kids are getting together on TikTok. TikTok? Yeah. TikTok. And it makes me really, really nervous because these are kids. These are under 18-year-olds that are going to TikTok and finding each other. So far, it seems to be working. The concerns that I have over predators on those particular sites doesn't seem to be something that comes to the fore very often, but it does. I mean, there are certain circumstances where things go dangerously awry, but in my personal experience, I haven't run across anybody with horror stories to tell. How about you? 817-379-2172, 817-379-2172. And so in our search to find somebody to hang out with, to enjoy from a standpoint of relationship, love, what have you, we certainly have changed. You know, it's like I found Susan in a racing group. In other words, people who were involved in Sports Car Club of America racing. That was our little group of people. We had several different teams involved in this hangout where we all hung out, and Susan was on one team and I was on the other, and we ended up being together, and that happened 30 years ago. And we've been together ever since. Did we have a chance to hook up on, say, for example, an online site? No. Would we have? Probably not, considering both of our backgrounds. It would have happened. But I keep trying to figure out whether or not this is okay. I keep trying to wonder, okay, so you don't hear the horror stories. There are horror stories out there, but you don't hear them as often as you'd think when it comes to online dating situations. You certainly heard an awful lot more about that kind of stuff when it was on Craigslist. You heard a lot of troubles from people meeting up on Craigslist. And there have been some troubles with people running across the wrong human being, even on eBay, where you're trying to do a deal that you're dealing with a stranger. But maybe things have changed. Maybe the adjustment is, like, for example, you're walking down the street, you say hi to somebody. Normally they don't attack you, etc., and the chances that they would is almost infinitesimal. So maybe what we've done is we've become an online society where all that's okay. What are your thoughts? 817-379-2172. 817-379-2172. The dad in me would say the following: whatever you do, if you use one of these dating sites, for God's sakes, be careful. Please be careful. I would appreciate that. Give me less gray hair. This is the Wells Report. We'll finish it up next as we continue on Valentine's Day 2014. Back in a second.
Greece is cheap.
But the airfare costs a fortune.
Paris?
Not much closer, and again, airfare...
What about Puerto Vallarta?
Let's face it, flying anywhere is just too expensive.
Wait, what's this? Low-cost airlines.
With one call to low-cost airlines, you'll drastically slash your travel costs. We're talking insanely low airline prices to any of your favorite destinations. Where would you like to go? London, Rome, Costa Rica, Australia?
Wow, that's cheap.
So why wait? Call now to learn how crazy cheap it is to fly anywhere in the U.S. or international. Our prices are so low, we can't publish them. The only way to get them is to call to instantly hear the most amazing best deals on airline travel. It's that easy. So call now and start packing.
Call 877-512-3895. That's 877-512-3895. 877-512-3895.
How would you like to get high-speed internet for your home for less than $2 a day? That's right, for about $50 a month, you'll get lightning-fast internet. Are you paying less than $50 a month right now for your internet? Then call Whole Home Connect right now for blazing fast internet at $50 a month with no price increases, no hidden fees, no contracts, no equipment fees. It's a great deal. And guess what? You can try it for 15 days. If you don't like it, you get your money back, but you're gonna love it, and you're gonna love the price. Internet for your home for $50 a month. That's less than $2 a day. Plus, no contracts, no equipment fees, and our 15-day guarantee. Call now.
Call 866-245-6155. That's 866-245-6155. Again, 866-245-6155. 866-245-6155.
This is the Wells Report. John David Wells, thank you very much for joining me on this day, Valentine's Day. We've been watching the chat room. So you mean those 50-ish military guys that friend us on Facebook are dangerous? No. Yes? I don't know. Let's see. Nobody else is putting their memories on here, says Martha. So put some memories on there. I just shared one. Come on. After a certain point of life, when you aren't a catch, it's rough. Well, you're always a catch, Martha. Stop it. You're a catch. You're absolutely a catch. All right, so where were we? Oh, yeah, Valentine's Day. Where did it come from? Where did it come from? Nobody really knows. U.S. Yvonne, You kind of like to jerk their chains, do you? Well, okay. Anyway, Valentine's Day, nobody really knows where it came from, but there are a lot of people that think they have ideas. Specifically, it goes all the way back to Rome. Let's see. It's people say that it's named after Saint Valentine. In fact, Catholic Church recognizes several saints named Valentine or Valentinus, who all became Christian martyrs. As one legend goes, Valentine was a 3rd century Roman priest around 270 BC, or no, after it would be AD, who continued to perform marriages even after Emperor Claudius II outlawed the right for young men. He wanted to become soldiers. He thought that being married was distracting to soldiers. He didn't want that distraction. Valentine was eventually put to death when Claudius discovered that he was marrying people that kept coming to him and saying, "Hey, marry us." Other accounts hold that it was Saint Valentine of Terni, a bishop for whom the holiday was named, although it's possible those two saints, according to Britannica, are the same person. By the way, this is from USA Today. Did I say that? Regardless of who should get the credit, an imprisoned Valentine is thought to have sent the first Valentine greetings. You know those little Valentine cards? He apparently sent the first one. The jailer who was looking out after St. Valentine brought his daughter, who was blind, to St. Valentine, and he restored her sight and apparently kind of liked her. And they sort of kind of fell in love. And so what happened is that apparently on his way to his fatal end, he wrote a note and signed it "From your Valentine." And that's where that tradition apparently comes from. One of the most common explanations of Valentine's Day, again, goes back to ancient Rome, the fertility festival of Lupercalia. Yeah. The debaucherous festival, which celebrated the coming of spring, included animal sacrifices, drunken revelry to honor Faunus, the Roman god of agriculture, as well as the Roman founders Romulus and Remus. Men and women were also paired up together through a lottery system in matches that often led to marriage, according to History.com. It was like their internet, I suppose. Lupercalia was celebrated for centuries in the middle of February, eventually transforming into a Christian celebration honoring St. Valentine as the Roman Empire became less pagan. At the end of the 5th century, the celebration of Lupercalia was forbidden by Pope Gelasius I, who often attributed with replacing it with St. Valentine's Day, according to Britannica. Now, how did Valentine's Day become this essential orgy of capitalism? Yeah, I said that on purpose. Well, it's celebrated everywhere. Americans projected to spend $25.8 billion on Valentine's Day. This, according to the National Retail Federation. More than half of consumers plan to celebrate will spend an average of $185.81 per person, according to the group. Most of the money will go toward buying nice things for romantic partners, though people also report spending a decent amount on friends, co-workers, classmates, and even their pets. Right. Many of these money-spending traditions can be traced back to the Middle Ages. You may have read Geoffrey Chaucer's Canterbury Tales in a high school English class, but the poet is also thought to be the source of our modern-day ideas about Valentine's Day, according to the New York Times. In a 1981 academic article, the late University of Kansas English professor Jack B. Orich argued that Chaucer's 1375 poem Parliament of Fowls, or Fools, was the first to record St. Valentine's Day as a romantic tradition. First signs of rudimentary Valentine notes began appearing much later in the 1500s, according to Britannica. By the middle of the 18th century, it became common for friends and lovers of all social classes to exchange small tokens of affection and handwritten notes. The first commercial Valentines in the U.S. were printed in the 1840s thanks to Esther Howland, known as the mother of the Valentine. Howland was credited as the first in the U.S. to sell mass-produced Valentines made with elaborate lace, ribbons, colorful pictures, known as scrap, according to History.com. Scrap. Let's see, JD, if you buy your dog a Valentine's present and not Susan, you'll be sleeping in the doghouse. As if I don't already. This year's Valentine's Day expense has been donated to the electric bill. Yeah, I got that. Let's see, not this per capita. No more fertility festivals? Look, this is simple. Human beings Human beings should celebrate romance, togetherness, relationships, and St. Valentine's Day is a perfect day for that. I would say that every society that is successful from a human standpoint would have some form of holiday to celebrate love. It just makes sense. Every now and then I reference the Neptunian Fertility Festival, which involves running around naked, dancing to strange music, and throwing gobs of jam at each other. I haven't really fleshed out, sorry about this pun, I haven't really fleshed out most of the details of the holiday, but when I do, you'll be the first to know. Thanks for joining us for the Wells Report. I'll see you again tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. Central Time. Okay. And there you go. All right. So what else is new? What else is next? I got a bunch of stuff I got to do. Work. Okay, so listen, you guys have yourself a wonderful day. Happy Valentine's Day to all y'all. Take good care, and I will talk to you again tomorrow, and I'll look forward to it as well.